Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Right Crowd. I am joined today with Mr. Gabriel Hugo Sanchez, Ashley Dotson, and Shaila Patel has just joined us. So hello. We already have Facebook and YouTube numbers climbing, and we already have a heart. Thank you so very much if you're out there watching. I am so incredibly excited to present to you Fantastical Finds Volume 2, featuring these amazing authors. Their stories are amazing. Their content is wonderful. And I'm so very excited for the conversations we are going to have today. And if you're new to The Right Crowd, this is the very last weekend that The Right Crowd is occurring. It was a month-long event every single Saturday and Sunday in the month of October, featuring panels of all sorts of different authors, genres, and topics. But this is not the end. This panel is the first panel kicking off Saturday. We have 2 more tomorrow, another one this afternoon. And the amazing thing about the internet is that if you want to see more of these beautiful people here and everyone else who is featured, you can always go back to author Katelynn Rentería on Facebook and YouTube and authorkatelynnrenteria.com/The Right Crowd and watch them all over again, experience those conversations again. It's going to be a lot of fun. So to everyone on Facebook and YouTube, hello, feel free to comment, say hi. This is going to be a Q&A based panel. So if you have questions for the authors, or if they say something super interesting and you want to comment, start conversations, feel free to do so. And prior to us going live, we already had comments coming in. We had comments on YouTube saying, super excited to see my CP Ashley in action, and hi from Ask Seek Knock on YouTube. Hello. So thank you for the interaction. Thank you for the engagement. And we can go ahead and jump into some super quick panelist introductions. One by one in order on screen. Why don't you guys say real fast, hi, my name is, and then what works that you have published, starting with Mr. Gabriel Hugo.
Hi, my name is Gabriel Hugo. My full name is Gabriel Hugo Sanchez. And I'm here just to talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. And my most recent book is Once Upon a Bad Hombre. It's a novella, mystery and dystopian kind of horror. And that's what I usually write.
Very nice. Thank you. And I think Shaila's having some technical difficulties and we're trying to iron them out. But as soon as she comes back, we'll give her introduction. So Miss Ashley Dotson, the floor is yours.
Hi there. I feel like we're in Brady Bunch. Like I can look up. I can look this way, wrong way. Oh, hi, Manuel. My name's Ashley Dotson. I am a young adult paranormal writer. I always get flustered when we do the introductions. I'm a teacher, an English teacher, and a mother of 4. And the free moments that I have during the day are filled with reading and writing. So I'm probably in good company right now with lots of book nerds. So, love you all.
Very nice. Thank you very much. And Shaila, I hope you can hear me. How about you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and what books that you write?
I hope. So I am Shaila Patel. And I'm sorry if I'm having, I don't know if it's perfect. And I'll keep trying to get it. I'm the author of Soulmated. It's a trilogy, all 3.
I think there is some internet interference going on with the distortion and the freezing and things like that. But let me see. Oh, I do have a YouTube comment coming in from one Mr. Manuel Ruiz, who was on a previous panel, and another author saying, hi, Shaila and Ashley, have a great panel. Thank you, Manuel, for joining. Hello. Thank you for tuning in. And once again, to anyone on Facebook or YouTube, feel free to comment, say hi, say hello. This panel is all Q&A based. We're going to get into some good conversations. We're going to hear all about things from the panelists' insights, about their books, about their writing process. It's going to be a lot of fun. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask, and the panelists are more than happy to answer. So let me see if Shaila's back in good internet. Are we good?
I hope so. So yeah, I'm gonna try. If it cuts out on me again, there's something I can try that I'm gonna do. I don't know if that'll work. It'll be something to try. If not, I might phone even and see if that works.
The phone works really well. You can still click the link to join and you'll be in. And I know that you are frozen again, and I think it might cause distortion again. Like, I already can't hear you again. I think there was some distortion going on. Hopefully she can fix the internet problems and come back on. But yes, again, to anyone on Facebook or YouTube, if you're tuning in, if you're joining, please feel free to leave a comment, say hi, say hello. But before we jump into Q&A, I would like to ask you all a very important question, which is, where are you tuning in from? Are you, we have some Texas representation here. We have Valley representation, outside of the Valley representation, outside of the state representation. So for those of you all here, where are you tuning in from? And I was going to start with Mr. Gabriel Hugo, but I think his internet lapsed too. But we can kick off. You're in the spotlight, Ashley. It's the day. We can start with Miss Ashley Dotson. Where are you tuning in from?
Well, currently I live in Blanco, Texas, about an hour north of San Antonio.
Very nice. And Miss Shaila Patel, where are you tuning in from? I think there is still distortion. No. Okay. We make it work. We keep going. We keep rolling. I have a couple of YouTubes coming in from Debbie Bravenek, pardon my pronunciation, saying, hi, Ashley, love you. And so we've got fans.
Hi, Mom.
We've got people. I love it. So we have comments, we have interaction. This is going good. And let me see. I have some comments of commenter interaction.
We can obviously tell that Ashley has been my mother. I've never given her books, you see. So this is her shameless attempt at trying to get some free books.
That makes me happy. And I do have some other comments coming in on Facebook from Patricia Rentería saying, hello, everyone. You all are awesome. Hi, Mom. Thank you for joining. Thank you for watching. And Jim Griswold about the internet interference says, it's the year 2020. You're right. Thank you for watching. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for saying hello. And remember, anyone on Facebook and YouTube, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to come in, have these good conversations. It's going to be good. So while the internet problems are being smoothed out for our other two panelists, Ashley, you are in the hot seat for our first question.
Bring it.
Which is, what made you sit down and write those first words of your book? Was it just, you knew that you were going to write, you knew that you were going to set out, you knew that you were going to create this series or this idea, or, did it kind of manifest and rather, before you knew it, you had this written work? How did that start out for yourself?
It's interesting. It's an interesting process, as you know. It's one that sort of takes over a compulsion, and like dieting or like, life changes, you have to choose to work at it. And at first it was that movement, that pull that I wanted to create something like these. I would read books and I said, I could do this. I want to do this. And I've had those thoughts for a long, long time. But like so many people, I told myself, who are you? What makes you think that you can do that? And that sort of self-talk is harmful. And it took a very special friend of mine when I was 32 for him to say, shut up. he was very, very blunt and very rude, and just got so tired of my own negativity toward myself. He said, you know, you can do this. Just quit talking. Quit saying you can't. And it took someone else saying you can. Not my mom, not my husband. It took somebody completely outside of that circle to say, you can do this. Just try. And I was very nervous, but I would do it at nighttime. I have 4 children. So I would write in secret. I wrote a long time before I told my husband, or I told my mother, who is obviously close with me, before I told it to people, because it felt like a secret, like something that wouldn't be accepted. And I know this is a similar story. You know, this is what we hear in the community, that all of us have felt like this. So, and once I had that first book, I knew it was going to be a series. And Shaila can tell you, starting with a series is hard.
It's hard.
It's difficult.
Don't start another series with a cliffhanger, whatever you do.
There you go. Yes. So, but I couldn't do without it now. You know, it's become part of who I am.
Very nice. And I think that's a good testament, you know, to prospective writers and authors watching, that, you know, it's okay to have those doubts. It's okay to not think that it's possible, because that's just natural, but to overcome it and keep going and persevere. If you love it enough, then absolutely you can make it happen. And I think you're a perfect testament to that, and role model, shining beacon of making it happen, because you have like a series, multiple, and, you know, new whips and all of these different things. And that's really, really awesome. And I'm very happy because it looks like internet problems are nice and smoothed out. Pictures are really clear. You guys are here. Yay. So, I know, Shaila, you did not get a chance to give your introduction. Like, we heard you a little bit and then it started to break. So if you could introduce yourself and what you write about and tell us where you're tuning in from, the floor is yours.
Sure. So I'm Shaila Patel, and my trilogy is Soulmated. It is basically a teen paranormal romance that has a heroine who looks like me. Well, I mean, not physically just like me, but, you know, a brown girl, a girl from India who, you know, born and raised here. And that was one of those things when I was growing up. Ashley, you were talking about, you know, hey, this reading, and that's been such a big part of your life, right? And it always was when I was younger. I was a huge Nancy Drew fan, but Nancy Drew wasn't a little Indian girl, you know, and it wasn't. I don't even think I really thought that, wow, I really want to see characters who look like me in stories that I want to read, the fun stories, right? I mean, I don't think that I was reading Catcher in the Rye or The Outsiders or Romeo and Juliet expecting to find someone who looks like me, but just the fun stuff, right? And so I spent a lot of time trying to write literary fiction, and that it just wasn't me. And so when I started this journey, and I just thought, you know, I'm just going to write something fun, just something fun with a girl who looks like me, just like I wanted when I was younger. I never expected it because, like I said, I never thought I would see myself in a book. But as I got older, I started thinking about it like, yeah, there's nobody that's like me, nobody that's had my experience, you know. And so I started writing that, and it was just like this, you know, all the light bulbs, every light bulb went off at the same time. And it was a really fun journey to take, you know, to write the trilogy. But it's basically the paranormal element is not the vampires and shifters that we're all kind of used to seeing, but it's empaths and psychics. And in this case, we have an Irish empath, and his parents are forcing him to find his empath soulmate. And it's a union that would give the family a lot of power, a lot of political standing. And, you know, he's an 18-year-old boy. He's like, I don't really care about that. But their search for this girl takes them to Cary, North Carolina, which I am actually from Charlotte, North Carolina. So to get to that question about where I'm writing from, so I'm not in Texas. I'm actually on the East Coast. But yeah, I'm from the Carolinas. And so I set the book in Cary, North Carolina. And he moves in next door to an Indian American girl named Lakshmi Kapadia. And the only problem is that she's not an empath. So now he has to kind of choose, you know, decide what he's willing to sacrifice if he wants to be with her. This is like his first real girlfriend. And it really I really got to play with some of those expectations of, the cultural expectations, and straddling both, American culture and Indian culture, even Irish culture, the empath culture. So that was kind of a neat thing. But yeah, that's kind of my trilogy in a nutshell.
Very nice. Thank you. And we had started with the first question, which was, what made you sit down and write those first words of your book? And I know the floor is open to Shaila and Gabriel to answer that question. So starting with Shaila, what made you sit down and write, your story? Did you know that this was going to become something, published, or did it kind of manifest, or what's the story behind that?
Yeah, it just kind of came out. I had actually had a death in my family in 2012. And that Christmas, we went overseas to spread. This was my father, and it's to spread his ashes. And my babysitter at the time, she was like, "Shaila, you have to read Twilight," And I was like, "Come on," And you remember, I kind of mentioned the whole literary fiction. I was trying, literary short stories and all that. Nothing ever came of any of that, and it was so disappointing. And here I am, like so many years old. I think. Was that 32? Yeah, 42. Hello, 42. And I was just so discouraged because I was like, geez, like I can't even get a story out. I can't write. I've always wanted to be a writer, and it just wasn't coming to fruition, right? So I read the story just like, on the plane ride, overseas. I thought, perfect. I could just download the books on my Kindle and read them, because Sarah was never going to let me let me live this down if I did not read the Twilight series. And when I read it, it was just fun, right? I mean, it wasn't any, there's no big thinking thematic, motifs and symbolism. Yeah, of course, it had little bits of all that, but it was just fun. And I realized I had gotten away from reading genre fiction since about high school, right? Because I mean, a lot of us, will read all the academic stuff for school. We might read some fun stuff, because we had book reports to do or whatever. And then if you don't really pick up on that reading in college or afterward, you pretty much stop, right? And all the stuff that I've read, thrillers or mysteries or whatever, it was just fun genre stuff. And I thought, why don't I just try my own story? If it doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't go anywhere. I'm not going anywhere with literary fiction. So I did start writing in January when we got back, and 6 months later, I just had 2 books done. I mean, they were really bad, mind you. They needed a lot of editing, for to be able to be published. But it was the first time I had been that productive, and I think it was me just finding the right voice, the right genre, but that was it. I wasn't planning to write a book. It was just, let me just get these characters down. I've been thinking about it since I had read the Twilight series. I just want something fun to do while I'm, at home, and it's just awesome from there.
Very nice. Thank you very much. And so, Gabriel Hugo, what about your story? How did you, I know you have multiple titles out, if you want to talk about a specific one or just in general. What made you, sit down and write those first words of the story? Did you set out to do it, or did it sort of manifest? Tell us about that.
Well, since my co-authors here, not co-authors, but, my fellow authors here are talking about series. I started a series some time ago. Let me see. It's this Tenochtitlan Must Fall. And I forgot the year. Probably 2018. And the way it came about is just 2018. So I'm planning for it to be like maybe three short novella series. And it came about from me doing a lot of research from when I was a young guy in high school. That's when I first started discovering a little more about the history of Mexico and ancient Mexico. And that's what this is about. It's Tenochtitlan is the ancient city of Mexico, what is now Mexico City. And so it touches upon the whole narrative of the conquest of Mexico and how historians have told a big lie about the history of Mexico, about the what really happened in the conquest. It wasn't a conquest; it was a revolution. It was a revolution of Mexican or Native American people revolting against the powers that were established already, and the newcomers falling into that revolution. But because they had the communication that they had with the old world through letters and writing in the in the traditional writing of the old world, right, of Spain and England, they wrote the history of this situation, of these events in a favorable way to the ones who were benefiting or profiting from getting titles, from the king of Spain and stuff. So, it goes into, this book starts off, with a background of the characters. The main character, his name is Ali. It's short for a Nahuatl name, which is a little more complicated. But so it starts with his background and how he comes to realize that he's living in an oppressive society or under an oppressive government, and he decides that he must work towards undoing that government. And that's really what the history, in reality, what the history of Mexico was about. It was a revolt, and so that's what I try to do with my writing, especially with this series, is try to present a different view of history, even though it's going to be in a fictionalized sense. Ali was not a real character. I came up with him, but this has been in the works for decades in my head, because I remember reading books, like, for instance, I don't know if anybody's familiar with the book of Bernal Díaz del Castillo, the relation of the conquest of Mexico, something like that. It's like the true history of the conquest of Mexico. So he was narrating how things went down. So that was the first book that I really delved into, and I was like, wow, man! Like, it was like reading just like reading a story, like a fictional story, but it was sold under the idea of history, right? So, and I ran, deeper and deeper into, like they say, the rabbit hole, searching for more information. And the more I discovered, the more it didn't make sense. It was like a square, how they say, a square peg in a round hole. It didn't fit. The history didn't fit. So that was my thing. I wanted to discover more. And then I came to realize, I have to rewrite, some of this, even though it's going to be a fiction, but, present a different version of things, because something that lines up with more with common sense. I can talk about it all day long. So if you guys want to just go ahead and quit and just let me talk all day long, that's cool. Nah,
Thank you. It's like innovation, like taking something and putting your own spin, making it, bringing the fiction into it, and like your own creative outlook. That's really amazing. And I do have some.
When you can actually take like something that might be dry history for an average layperson, and then actually make like a fictional story that fits right in there and teaches you about that. I love that. That's the way I get my history mostly.
There's a historian from England who sums it up really perfectly. He says, history is the stories we tell ourselves, and in reality, if you really look at it, there's very few aspects of history that we can actually verify. Everything else it relies on other people saying, yeah, it happened, right? But everybody has different versions of events, even things that happened a few days ago. You could talk to 5 different people about the same event, and they'll tell you slight differences in the version. So Yeah, I like that quote. You know, history is the stories we tell ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think too with students, if we label it as history, sometimes we have an aversion to it. You know, just us as kids. I don't want to read something that you tell me to read. I'll read that over there. It's cool. So we need to fit stuff in that, you know, that's important. That kind of like vitamins. You don't know you need it yet.
That's true.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And we have some audience interaction coming in, which is really, really nice. I know, Shaila, when you were talking about your books, I had a YouTube comment saying, sounds so cool, Shaila. And Raul Martinez Jr. over on Facebook, big supporter, top fan. Hi, Raul. He says, hi, Katelynn, Gabriel, Shaila, and Ashley. Hi, Raul. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for saying hi. And I have... see, this is the fun part when, you know, audience members start asking questions and we can dig into those kinds of things. I do have some YouTube comments. I know one says, Ashley, what can you tell us about your work in progress and when will it be in my inbox? And we do have another comment saying, what is your next work in progress? So if the panelists want to take that question on, telling us about, you know, something either that you're working on concrete, you know, you've got a manuscript in the works, or, you know, I know for me, I'm like, oh, my work in progress, it's this idea that's been in my head for months and hasn't been written down once, but I've got it. So any, you know, ideas or work in progresses that you have, I think Ashley's reconnecting, but we can start with Shaila. Any work in progresses that you have going on?
Yeah, I actually have, well, I have one big one that's kind of like pretty far into it. It's a story, my background, my background's in pharmacy. So I was a pharmacist for about 10 years before I switched careers. But as a pharmacist, you know, at that time, you know, everyone knows about the whole opioid crisis, and opioid addiction was a big deal back then. But the state that I practiced in, it was a misdemeanor. And so you could be a patient who could go around and what they called doctor hop. So you could go to different doctors. You could pretend to be different patients or just use your own name, because it's not like doctors were talking to each other and saying, you know, hey, Katelynn, you know, I just prescribed 90 Percocet to a particular patient, you know, do you too? You know, that kind of information wasn't shared. So you could doctor hop, and then you could shop around to different pharmacies, and even doing that just so you could purchase hundreds of pills a month and then turn around and sell them. It was just a misdemeanor. And about the same time I stopped practicing, that was going to change in a lot of states. And so it really got me thinking. I was like, well, how do I bring that part of my past into a work, a young adult, you know, story? And so it ends up being a young adult romantic suspense, basically. And it is about a good old Carolina country boy who is in the foster system, and his younger brother, well, the middle brother, ends up tries to be like a guerrilla reporter, right? So he's got this blog from his own foster family. He is like trying to expose all these things that are happening in Charlotte, and he ends up finding out about a prescription, a black market prescription drug ring. And he gets himself killed because of it. It's kind of deals with doctors and biker clubs, and so when this happens, and the main character turns 18, he actually now wants to get custody of the youngest sibling, which is the younger sister, but he can't because the social services is like, well, yeah, but your other brother was living with you and you let him go off with biker clubs and get himself killed. And, you know, and he was into drugs. And he's like, no, he wasn't. He really wasn't. And he's having a hard time trying to prove himself. And he really wants to bring his family back together. Both his parents have kind of gone, one was because of some family issues and mental health illness. And she ended up leaving the children completely. And then the father was an alcoholic. So to him, trying to get his family back together is really the number one thing. So when he starts digging into his brother's death, he finds out that there was a doctor who's prescribing these narcotics that this biker club is now selling on the streets. And this is what the middle brother wanted to actually expose, and finds out that the girl that he's kind of started seeing and is interested in is actually the daughter of that doctor. She's another Indian American girl because I wanted a character who looks like me, right? And so it's got a lot of that suspense element. It's pretty late in the stages. I think I have one final pass before I turn it into my agent. It's kind of a planned series. So one of the other characters in the book will kind of feature in the second book, and that one I want to focus on the pharmaceutical industry and testing in third world countries and how they try to do this, like, they try to pay really poor countries money to bribe them to test all these drugs on the really indigent populations. And so the two friends of the heroine in book one kind of have their own story as well. But it's hard to do that as young adult, but they're just right at that 18-19 cusp. It's a little bit on the grittier side, not kind of like that, teen pop paranormal kind of stuff that Soulmated was. So that's a little bit of a departure for me, but I'm excited about that story. And I'm like, this is probably not the best year to sell a book. So I'm taking my time a little bit, with finishing up edits. So.
I'm glad though. That sounds super interesting. And it's one of those topics that it's difficult to present and difficult to have, especially with like a young adult audience, but like bringing in a way, like how Ashley had said, like, maybe I don't want to read about this because it's that thing, but making it like fictional and interesting and exciting. That's really, really cool. So, Mr. Hugo, what whips do you have? Any work in progresses that you either have almost complete or that you're, formulating in your mind? What can we see coming up from you?
There's several. I have several works in progress. One of them is of course the follow-up to this one, which actually on this book I present a little sample of the follow-up book in the series, and it's called Monster of War. I don't know if you can see that. It's just a little sample of the follow-up. So I'm working on that. I'm working on a book in Spanish of a story my mom told me when I was growing up. I think most of my writing inclination and my storytelling inclination from my mom, because she was such a accomplished storyteller. And by that I mean that whenever we would get together with family or anywhere she went, people would just flock to her and beg her to tell a story, because she was that good at telling stories. So I am writing a story that she told me about. It's kind of it's going to be like a horror story involving cats. So if you're a cat lover, you're going to be offended. And I know most people. Yeah. So I present a very evil side of cats.
Pet Cemetery worked.
I'm sorry?
I said
What?
Pet Cemetery worked,
Pet Cemetery, right? Stephen King.
There you go.
That's right. And it worked. Yeah. No, I mean, it's nothing involving any kind of like negative view of cats or anything. It's just a story that she told me that was so compelling, so cool, that I feel like I have to show it to everybody else. I'm writing it in Spanish, but I want to translate it into English also, because it's really, really a great story. And it's based on something that she experienced herself. So it's partially fiction, partially based on a true story. And I'm working on a poetry book also. And I got another book of short stories. I've already written a book of short stories called Martian Ones. I really am very captivated by the whole idea of going to Mars and establishing another civilization out there. But the problem with me is that I guess, cynicism, or, just maybe seeing the world as it is. This story is called The Martian Ones, Tales of Human Folly, right? And so the argument is like, we're going to Mars to establish another society to try to escape our problems that we have here, but who's populating that society in Mars? It's people, right? So we're gonna end up taking those problems over there anyway. So it's kind of like futile, but that's my dystopian view when I write, and sometimes I stop myself like, come on, dude, let the guy survive,
Yeah.
live at the end. Come on, But sometimes you can't fight it. You just gotta go with what the ether is feeding you.
Yeah.
You asked earlier about where the inspiration comes from. I don't know about the ladies here, but I feel like a lot of it, maybe more than 50%, I would say, is a power that comes from outside. And if you're ready, like prepared, knowing how to write, and if you are prepared mentally and disciplined, and you're able to receive it and put it into action, then you capture it. If not, you don't capture it. It leaves you, and it goes to another host. It goes to another host. And I've seen this. I'm pretty sure you guys have seen this, where you think of an idea and you're like, wow, that would be interesting, and then sometime later, somebody will do it, and you're like, whoa, I just thought of that. So I think it is. Yeah, it's like a spirit. It's coming and saying, hey, are you ready? If not, that other guy or that other lady might be ready. So yeah, that's I think a lot of it has to do with that, and of course, experiences and inspiration through life, basically.
It's funny.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
I'll try to let my character survive. Hopefully, try to like.
Just hoping.
Be positive, Gabriel. Be positive.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, it's not me.
Yeah.
I'm a very positive guy. I'm a very positive guy. Is this this genie that comes to me?
The ideas. There was when I was younger, I used to think that my ideas were so creative, that they were like the 1 in a million idea, that I was the only person who could have come up with this idea, right? And as you get older, you start realizing there is no original idea. It's just an original execution of that idea, and maybe even not, right? But that's like the only hope that you can get or have of being original, is maybe the execution of the idea. But the ideas, they're not. And so I don't know if it's so much of cynicism, Gabriel, as much as it's just reality, right? I mean, this is what happens. People get together. It could be either really good or really bad. It could be very positive. It could be very negative, whatever. But it's just on the spectrum of life experiences. So yeah, so it's interesting you said that about the ideas. It's just going to go in one ear, out the other, into somebody else. Right?
Very true. Very true. And as for Ashley, what work in progresses do you have? Any, exclusive information of what's to come from yourself?
Exclusive. Well, I've been very open with those who ask about my current project. I have a manuscript that I have felt that was not very refined, not very finished. It felt like it was wrong timing. I couldn't get the story correct, and it has had hold of me for over a year. And also, I'm at a time in my life where my kids need me a whole bunch. So that has a major effect. But right now, I have this story that I'm working on. It's called Searching the Reaches. And it's been very inspired by poetry. And I feel I feel very exposed saying that, because people who know me, I don't think I'm very poetic. But it has been. And it's about 4 young girls. And they end up going on a camping trip, but these young girls are actually not friends anymore. Parents are kind of forcing them to be friends one more time. Go, you're friends. These 4 girls end up getting in some trouble, and something follows them home from this body of water. It's set in West Texas. I don't want to take it away, but it feels led by some very dark poetry, and these girls. One of them ends up dying. I got the same problem, Gabriel. Somebody ends up dying. I'm sorry. Tell them I'm sorry. They end up losing one of their friends, and throughout the whole story, you don't know which friend it is for a while, and it's kind of guided by two different voices from our main character, whose name's Joe, short for Josephine, and the spirit that she brought back with her, who's stuck with her. And you can't tell. Well, hopefully, you can't tell. She doesn't know either. Is she going insane? Is this her mind playing tricks on her from her grief, or did something actually follow her home? And she's getting prepared for graduation. She's getting prepared for all these other things. Her friends have moved on. Why can't she? And it's because she has this thing stuck to her. Is it her, or is it some sort of outside force? Also, her mind playing tricks on her. If you guys have ever read the story about the girl with no hands, or the girl with silver hands, it's an old, I call it a fable. It's an old Grimm's Brothers fairy tale, and it's kind of a story like that. She's the very good one. She's the one that says, "You need my hands, take them." And in the Grimm's version, she ends up losing her hands. This person in the name of the devil chops off her hands. But in my story, it's blood she sees on her hands. She feels responsible. So she can't get the blood off. She's always looking. Every time she looks at her hands, she sees blood on her hands. So she's just very, very torn. I feel this book is a little darker than my others. Shaila, I'm like, is it too much?
Is it too much? Right. Yeah.
Do I want my kids to read this? But I'm okay with it. Right? I'm a firm believer. I have a thing about cussing. If you're going to cuss, make it for a darn good reason. And most of my literature, I've written things, or I've thought thoughts. Are these things, I always keep in mind, are these things I'd want my students to read? Are these things I'd want my kids to be reading? Right? What's my message? Is it these words, or can I write? I always try to find a better way to say things. So I feel, even though the material's dark, like you thought, Shaila, if the material's dark, if it seems sophisticated, how can I write it to where it needs to be? Because even though we're young, even though we're teenagers, we feel dark things. We have dark thoughts. That's not just for adults.
Right.
I'm glad I'm in good
Nice.
company there. I'm with the right crowd.
The right crowd.
The right crowd.
You know,
Everyone
Shaila,
Everybody dies. Everybody.
Well, Gabriel, Shaila and I don't know, Shaila, if we've ever done a panel, but I've always shared previously, writing for teenagers, people always ask me, why do you write for teenagers? Being a teenager is very difficult. I hope my son is not hearing me right now. Being the teenager is the most difficult time ever.
Yeah.
And, that's why none of us would go back ever. We'd be like, no, we're good.
Nope. Yeah.
College, it's very difficult.
Maybe, right? But not high school. Everyone goes, oh, high school is the best. I'm like, I would never go back to high school. Are you kidding me?
It's difficult. So anything that you can do to inspire or help or say, hey, bro, I've been there. Something.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that very much.
I think this whole pandemic thing, forcing us into, forcing kids onto online learning. I think it has, even though it takes away a little bit of the communication, or the interaction in person. But I think it helps a lot with self-esteem issues because they don't have to worry. Those kids in high school don't have to worry about fitting in, being popular, looking thin, or looking cool, or any of those superficial things, or worrying about bullies, worrying about all these other things that have nothing to do with education. You know, some people say, oh, you know, having a bully has actually made me a better person or a stronger person. Really? You really needed to be kicked around and treated like a piece of dirt for you to create somebody who is worthy? I mean, no, that's wrong. That is so wrong. So for me, it's like it's a blessing in disguise, you know, in that sense only. I mean, of course, the tragedy of it, the other part of it is it's a huge tragedy. But you know, just this aspect of them being able to focus on their education, you know, and learning. My kids are you know, they're doing their work online. Plus, after they're online, they do, like, you know, they practice. Like, I got one of them practicing Spanish because, you know, even though we live right here in the border, he speaks English. You know, so I'm like, no, you got to learn some Spanish. This is the right place to learn it. And then my other one is, you know, he's learning guitar. I mean, you know, so it's all about learning. That's what's gonna create somebody who's strong, not you know, bullies and all this pressure that has nothing to do with, you know, forming somebody, you know, with self-confidence, you know. So
But that's
in
what
that sense, I think it's
Ashley, when I don't think we were ever on a panel together at Teen Book Fest, but I think I remember hearing somebody state that writing for teens is just inherently filled with drama as it is. I mean, that's why you write a story. And with teenagers, there's just no end drama, right? So it just kind of lends itself to great storytelling. And then, you know, what you do from it after that, I mean, you know, you can make it an issue book or just some, you know, some great, just entertaining fiction or whatever, or teach something, you know, if it's historical. But yeah, I love that. I love, you know, I've thought about it. Like, you know, should I write adult? And
yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, I just kind of like, well,
I have been open to it though, especially now that I've been struggling so much with this latest story. Is do I, you know, I'm not locked in.
Yeah,
I can do whatever I want. You know, we can write whatever, you know, our audience, there's nothing that says that you can't grow as an author or change. The same reason that I'm feeling about this poetry book the way I felt about my first book. Mm. What are they going to say what are people going to say? Yeah. You know, and so I keep that in mind. That is this something to be, you know, proud of? I can do this. You know, so that's, you know, you are a writer, and right now I'm currently a young adult writer, but to say that's not going to change. Mm-hmm. We're constantly changing and writers.
I love this. We're getting into, like, you know, the questions are presented, but then we're getting into like conversations and like digging into things. And I love this a lot. But before I move on to my next question, I do have some comments on Facebook coming in. Miss Ana Loera, a librarian and panelist on a previous panel, says, "Hi from Port Isabel, Texas." Hi, Ana.
Hi, Ana.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for joining. And another author who was featured on a previous panel, Miss Miracle Austin, says, "Hello, everyone. Great job."
Miracle.
Hi, Miracle. Thank you for watching. Thank you for joining. And Gabriel, I like that you touched on, you know, like the virtual aspect. That leads me to my next question. And, you know, particularly online learning, just because, you know, I know there are teachers and librarians and, you know, educators who have been watching these panels and engaging and interacting and sharing them with their students. And, you know, I also wanted to thank each and every one of you here, like as an author and panelist, for just, you know, you're taking time out of your day to share your stories, share this insight in a way that, you know, students everywhere and teachers everywhere and librarians and families everywhere will have access, you know, to these conversations to learn and to receive. And, you know, absolutely for the teachers and librarians, nurses, educators out there, just thank you for all that you do. These are trying times. You're going above and beyond and things, learning how to Zoom and Google Classroom and engaging. This was not in the job description, but you took it, and you ran, and you made it, come to life. And, I have a younger brother who, he's doing his freshman year of high school completely remotely, completely online. And I've seen how his teachers are, doing their absolute best to make it engaging and interactive and make the students, still make friends and still connect. And so very much thank you to all the teachers and educators watching and beyond for all that you do. But that does lead me to my next question. In, how has our current world situation impacted your writing career? It would be wonderful to say, having to stay home, this is I've done the most I ever have, but that's not.
We haven't.
No, we
haven't.
That's not
We've
the
showered
case.
just as much as the rest of y'all,
Right.
It has been better though. Since June, we have been bathing more.
It's so
Have y'all
funny.
written any more? I'm gonna be impressed if you say yes.
Yeah, like that's and it doesn't have to be just writing related. Have you been focusing on other projects or marketing or trying to publish this, or maybe you're working on like a book cover or more ideas? Starting with Gabriel, how has our current world situation impacted your writing career?
It's totally crapped all over everything that I was planning. I released this book on February 2020, this year. And of course, I wasn't able to do anything other than, release it. No actual events, no book signings, book launch, nothing. So I'm actually thinking of, reworking it and doing a relaunch, a second edition or something like that, to give it an actual proper send off. Because, like I said, when it came out, right, a few days later, it's like, oh my God, the world is about to end. It's like, what? Seriously, I got a new book, like.
Wait, I'm busy. I got stuff.
I know.
So,
I'm so sorry,
it's
Gabriel. I
totally,
can't think of anything worse than a book birthday.
Yeah.
yeah, and as far as the writing, like you said, you got all this free time now, you can focus on your writing. Writing is assisted by having things to do, that take you outside of the writing zone, whether it's, the environment and the mental zone, right? But when you're stuck in one place, that place becomes the everything zone, right? So then there's no designated area that is just for writing mentally either, right? Because it's all jumbled up in one. We're all, we're crammed, right? Psychologically also. So I've noticed that I've tried to write, and I get something done. I'll get a paragraph done, a couple of paragraphs done, whatever. But I don't feel like my genie is here. Like it's like that in that movie, where Alexander is like, where has our eagle gone? Like I'm looking for my eagle, and it's like it's really hard to find it. To find that channel is like. I remember writing this book, the Tenochtitlan Must Fall. This one, I remember writing this one like a stream of consciousness, just like, oh my God, I was a machine. This one too, actually. This one as well. It just came to me. I was like, I don't even have to do anything. I can go to sleep, let my hands do the work, right? It was just magical. And like this right now, I don't know. It's hard. It's hard.
I would agree.
But,
I would agree.
And I think we're all feeling that. I think it's, it also has to do with just the world atmosphere. It's for us, for those of us that writing is our escape, or, we try to portray something, da da da. If you're not feeling the happy, awesome, optimistic, yay, because of everything that's going on in the world, then how can you kind of you need to channel the mindset in order to create. And I feel like, you're not the only one. I think we're all, facing that of just, where has it gone? Like, where has that, little inspiration bubble? And it's one of those things where we need to kind of, buckle down and say, like, well, let's try. And, sometimes it just doesn't happen, but it's not a fault, or it's not, oh my gosh, we're all facing it, and we just got to do the best that we can. But, for Ashley, how has how has our world situation impacted your writing career and author life?
Well, no travel, which is of course sad. I miss seeing all of you guys very much. I have been moving for the entire pandemic. We have been building. We sold our house. If you see the box behind me, that is my daughter's lovely dresser drawer. We sold our home, and that was difficult. And I have found that when it rains, it pours. And my problems are first world problems. This is what makes me. I have to stop and check. My stress. This is not important stress. Everybody's healthy. Everybody's employed. Everybody's in school. Thank you. That's enough right there. Say grace over. Everything else is icing on the cake. So I make sure to think about that. Mother first, teacher second, writer third. Maybe one day that will get to be changed. But right now, that's the order in which I can prioritize. And I always will. Until I retire. Yes, I am counting the days. And that's fine. And I've always been okay with that. I really have. So I'm not bothered too much. One of the things that I have been really focused on is that poetry. So y'all are the first people I'm admitting this to, and it feels like a dirty secret.
Yeah.
But I'm practicing. I'm practicing. By next year, it won't be. Next year, I will feel a little more comfortable saying it. Who is our poet laureate down at the McAllen Library?
I believe most recently it's Rodney Gomez, but it's been Edward Vidauri, and a few years ago Priscilla Selena Suarez, and it changes.
Priscilla. That was right. It was Priscilla. And I remember talking to Priscilla about it and being so impressed. And Priscilla was one of the people I went, I want to do that. So that's one of the things that I have been doing since this pandemic. It is focusing, splitting time, which is never a good thing for me when it comes to writing. But the thing is poetry it's almost like I can give it my 10 minutes. I can give it the 15 minutes. I can put it on a Post-it. I can put it on my phone notes. I have a folder, a notebook, a notebook that goes with me in my purse that I work with. So I've got a lot of different outlets and a lot of different time for things, for poetry. This has not been easy with 4 kids all learning from home and teaching from home. Mm-hmm. So I am that mother on a meme that we have seen circulating over the past 6 months with the wine, and in her coffee cup. But this will pass. We just, like you said, buckle down. I hate this. We find a new normal. We find a new way to do what we love. If it's a priority, we will figure it out. And I'm going to take my time to do what needs to be done with kids, with the move. And if this book is, I'm going to make it, I've got to make it priority. And that's what I want. That's my next white whale, is this book, Searching the Regions. I really want to see it happen. I haven't had anything weigh this heavy on my mind in a while. And I know that's that spirit. I know that's it's talking to me. I don't want it to go away. Yeah. I need it to stay here a little longer.
So the title is Searching.
That.
Excuse me?
The title is Searching?
Searching the Reaches.
So Searching the Reaches is from a poem. It's 3 words from the middle of the line. And it's about a woman who discovers that she's old, which actually has nothing to do with the book. I love the imagery that was within the poem. I love the the poem, The Mirror. You guys, it's Sylvia Plath, and that's why one of the reasons, like, when I say Sylvia Plath, people go, "Oh, so people died." It wasn't the intention. I just remember reading the poem and thinking, "Oh my gosh, I love the different images that she created about the woman looking over into the water. You know, the fish at the end. So like, and I like that. I like the gross that came out of the end of that poem. Is where I got the dead, rotting entity that follows her. My character. Y'all can go back and read Mirror.
I love it, and I know I'm definitely like, and I again, like, publication is a thing, and the whole journey of like making it come into the world. But I'm definitely got like on my list of to read. It's already there, like Searching the Reaches, like start like not like it's still just there, like ready, waiting, not yet, but it's there, like ready for when it happens.
Thank you.
And Shaila, how has our current world situation impacted your own writing career or authorship?
Well, I mean, I work at a medical office. So really throughout the entire summer, spring, summer, and now fall, I was never quarantined. So I didn't really have the same experience as everybody else. But I tended to be, the type of writer I tend to be is I stay up late. Like, I'm a nighttime and night owl. So I would come home from work, we do dinner, and then I'm up until 2, and then I would go into work a little bit later. So that was maybe a little bit of a change, was that to kind of reduce my exposure to everybody. I would actually come into work a little bit later, and because I'm in administration, I would stay later, like maybe 7, 8 o'clock at night, because I didn't have to. I don't actually have patient care. That's not part of my duties. So I would be in my office just working until late, and that was working fine until the stress started getting to me, and I noticed that I became less and less productive, and everything. I mean, a lot of people talk about the COVID, but there's also the politics going on right now is very stressful for people. So all of that combined has made me very well, the stress is there, but it's made me very, like, not very productive, right? And so this editing, this last final pass on my work in progress that I talked about earlier, has just been really slow going. And Ashley, you were talking earlier about just this kind of this self-doubt, right? And this kind of this imposter syndrome thing that we talk about a lot in the writing community. And it really did, it kind of got to me more than normal. So I feel like my stress threshold has been kind of lowered. And so things that normally I could just kind of brush off and not even think about has really kind of affected me. And so my idea of self-care, right, would be to escape all of that and just not think. And that usually meant, reading, watching a movie or TV or something like that, and just kind of escaping mentally. And after a few months, I realized, wow, I've kind of read a lot of books and watched a lot of movies. I'm like, oops, I need to get back to work, right? But it's just not there. And I kind of, I look at stress in life and just kind of think, you just have to go with it, right? If I can't get myself to do it, I'll be under more stress by pushing myself to edit a chapter, and I hate everything I write. Well, what's that about then? I'm just adding more stress to myself. And then another part of me is thinking, well, you're just escaping, and it's become this kind of crutch instead of dealing with, maybe it's a little bit of both, right? But yeah, so I think in my case, I do have, like what Gabriel was talking about, going out there in the world and kind of having other experiences to kind of refresh your mind. I really think it's kind of a reset, because right brain people who are, that's kind of where your creativity centers are. To give your right brain a rest, you need to kind of think left brain. And I kind of feel like I'm an equal part both. I'm really good in math and science. And the writing thing, I loved writing all throughout that period, but I never really focused on it. So later in life, I'm developing the right brain part of me. And I notice that when I go to work and I'm thinking spreadsheets and, and clinical this and clinical that and, workflow issues and systems, issues, whatever, I tend to kind of exercise my left brain. But I'm still relying on my right brain, right? Because creativity can kind of make you think outside the box and solve problems and issues. So it's been interesting. I kind of feel like going to work has actually, rested that part of me, the creative side of me that's kind of hurting right now. But yeah, I kind of don't want to avoid writing for too long, because I kind of feel like I might just get back out of it and be like, oh, how am I going to find 10 minutes to write? And meanwhile, I'm watching 3 hours of TV, or something.
Yep.
So I
think,
there. Yeah, escaping has been really, it's addicting in some way, right? And you're like, oh, I'll work on that chapter this weekend, or I'll do that, later, and later just is like 3 weeks later, and that doesn't make me feel any better at the end of all this. So I do hope that I kind of snap out of it soon,
I think we're all trying. Like, I know the escape is an absolute. I'm absolutely, I completely relate. Where doing like different author things or trying to write or I'm in grad school and doing all that, like with the lab and this and trainings and the assignments and classes, and then I'm like, maybe that extra hour of Netflix won't hurt anybody. And then later you're like, oh, there's my to-do list ever growing longer. But we need
hey. Katelynn, we're just coming on here for an hour. You've been doing how many of these? This is huge.
Yes.
Let you go.
Thank you. I'm trying. But again, just like, and I think not for you all as well, but just like all creatives everywhere, because I think, it goes back to the beginning of this question where, a lot of people, I don't want to say it's the stereotype, but people tend to think like, oh, being on lockdown and being in quarantine and staying home, like, why haven't you done this and this and this and this? And it's like, well, I'm a person the same as you are. There, we all have life and work and family and things like that, and it's okay to take that mental break to take care of yourself in order to make sure you output the best content possible. And I know I've been missing the in-person things so very much. It's festival season. We should be seeing each other like in person as of right now, and it's if I can provide even like an hour and a half where we can sit here and talk, and we're all in different places. Gabriel and I were both in the RGV, but we're apart. Ashley, you're in Texas, but we're apart. Shayla, you're in the Carolinas, we're apart, but we're all here in one screen, in one hub, and we're sharing and we're celebrating. And if I can make that happen, then I want us to be able to still celebrate and promote, because we do have this content, we have these things to present and promote and celebrate, and if we can do that even for a short while here, then I'm glad to do so. And I have some comments coming in from Facebook. Miracle Austin says, understand, Shayla, with, taking the breaks. And she says, mental breaks are essential indeed. Absolutely. And, we do the best we can, and we persevere and we keep going. But I think I have about 2 more questions. And again, for audience members on Facebook and YouTube, if you have a question or a comment or anything that you want to hear about, feel free to comment, say hello, keep the interaction happening. And my question for you all would be, what is the easiest and or most difficult part about either writing or being an author? I think the running current of, one of the hardest parts is the marketing. We're just, putting it out there and So it could be something in that aspect, or the actual writing process, or maybe when the idea comes. What are the easiest and or most difficult parts of this realm of your life, starting with Gabriel?
Well, at the risk of sounding a little cocky, being an author is awesome. It's easy. It's easy and awesome. Being an author, and that's I'm not saying writing. Writing is hard. Writing is hard. I mean, from the point of view of what you were saying, the marketing aspect of it, I love that. To me, that's easy, and the kind of thing that I like to do. Getting out there, getting books out there, getting the proper writing to market the product, the imagery, the whatever, trailers, anything, all that stuff. That's really cool. And of course, the number one, easy thing to do for me is that I enjoy is the in-person events. As you've been part of them, Katelynn. The in-person events are the best. Not only because you get to sell your book or present your book, but also getting together with people like you, people like Shaila and Ashley, other authors that present their own work and other perspectives, and maybe if you're coming from another region of the country too, so that's really cool. I really like that. The challenging part, like I said, is the writing, because I'm like Ashley, right? Ashley is a parent. I'm a single dad. I got two kids. So we're doing the online learning, and when I say we, I mean we. I'm the computer tech. I'm the teacher assistant. I'm the tutor. I'm the cafeteria lady. I'm the cafeteria guy, whatever. I'm the janitor. I'm the every single thing that you can think of, right? And I don't have to explain it to you guys. You know this, especially parents. So, but yeah, that is part of the challenge. Then when you actually get to actually sit down and write, you're so exhausted mentally and physically, and it's like, okay, how many sentences can I crack out, today? Oh my God, Ozark is out with a new episode, like. And
Netflix has really not helped, has it?
Right.
No,
I'm sorry, Netflix.
I think it's like they say, it's a double-edged sword, because, well, not a double-edged sword. It's got positive and negative. It might take up a lot of our time, but I think it's very necessary. I think it actually is to a certain extent inspiring to see so many streaming services out there screaming for content. That's a good news. That's good news for us. That's good news for all of us. That the creative aspect of what is programming is no longer reserved to a few handful writers. Amazon Prime had I'm pretty sure you guys, some of you might know of it. Just a year or two ago, they had a contest where they were looking for content for their Prime Video service from authors who are on KDP and stuff. So you would write your book, publish your book, and submit it to that contest. And if you got picked up, your book would be turned into a series or a movie, and you get all these royalties. You become a millionaire and go live in a castle, right? And that was amazing, So that didn't happen before. That it was all closed up in a bubble of Hollywood, and now it's completely open. So we have a big opportunity here. And I think watching these shows is, if you see it as just passively watching, then you're just gonna be passively watching. But if you watch these shows with the intent to learn, then you can turn it into something profitable, I think, eventually. So I would urge people, writers, authors like ourselves, don't get discouraged by like, oh my God, I'm getting dragged, into another episode of The Boys on Amazon Prime, right? It's a huge show. It's really cool. Hey, actually, maybe I'll learn something about how to tell stories that they want to buy, I don't know. It's a way to look at it where you don't see yourself like I'm such a loser because I'm just wasting my time watching these shows. Maybe you're gonna gain something from it. I think it's possible.
Yeah.
Research, exactly. It's like the politicians. The rich people say, "Oh, he when he was 40 years old, he was a young guy. He went on a sabbatical, whatever. Like, no, he was partying and doing cocaine, like
A sabbatical. This is our research.
Yeah, sabbatical. He was
Minus the cocaine.
research, finding the meaning of life. No, he was coking up, partying every day, boozing. Yeah. So that's how we want to flip the paradigm, switch it.
Nice. And for Ashley, what are the easiest or most difficult parts of writing and the author career?
Time management is very difficult. I've always found writing to be fun. Being an author and being a writer are not the same thing. You've seen it on memes and T-shirts. The only thing different about being an author and being a writer and being an author as an author is somebody who doesn't give up, who keeps at it every day. And that holds true. I can write one book and be an author, but the thing is do I want to keep that standard up? I want to keep that, or I'm that I'm currently a writer. An author means that I have a goal, whether that's my foremost goal or one that I can see off in the distant future. I've got a goal and I'm working at it. I personally think that I'm a really bad editor. I've talked with Manuel so much about Manuel. He's so good at sprint. He always telling me do sprint. You gotta do writing sprint. Not a good writing sprinter. So I try to find new ways to keep myself motivated. New time management, because for me it seems there's never enough hours in the day to really devote. And Manuel's constantly telling me, 20 minutes is all you need. You can do so much with 10 minutes. Just in writing sprint. So that was I bought a book on writing sprint, and that's one thing that I've been struggling with this year's time. Even when a pandemic drops and has given us, here, you want time? You got it. But that's true. It's just different. But I love the marketing, right? That's so much fun because I don't get to do that every day. When I had my first book, my husband went out and he had a whole bunch of T-shirts made, and that he was so proud, and he had T-shirts made for our book swag. So he still loves to get in on that too. Sometimes it becomes a family event. But there's so much involved with writing. There's marketing, there's editing, there's the idea portion, there's the research, and it's a gift, and I'll take it.
Very nice. And I have one of those shirts, the Black Bayou Road. I have the shirt that you had given me the last time I saw you, and I do have it. I do wear it. So, Shaila, what's the easiest or most difficult part about being an author for yourself?
I would say the easiest is letting my creative, imagination run wild. I love plotting or thinking about new characters, plotting out a story, brainstorming with another author. That's like, somebody says, hey, I need some help brainstorming. I'm like, oh, you got 2 hours on the phone? Let's go. And we'll do that. I mean, I love that. Coming up with ideas is probably the funnest thing. And then of course writing them and kind of watching that unfold, watching their story unfold. The hardest part is probably the worrying. The worrying, am I going to sell this book? The worrying, am I marketing enough? The worrying, am I ever going to meet my goals? Am I going to finish this editing? Or is it going to be enough editing? Is this going to be enough to impress a publisher? If I get an offer from a publisher, is it a reputable publisher? Is it a good publisher? Are they going to back me enough? Those kind of thoughts really impede that creative juice that you rely on a daily basis. We once you become part of the author community, you hear stories left and right, and it doesn't matter whether you're with a big 5 publisher or whether you're with a small press. There's going to be the pitfalls on both, right? So, people are like, oh, well, if you're going to go with a big 5, make sure you get a big advance, because if you get a big advance, then you won't have to worry about, it's all your money. And then other people will be like, no, don't get a big advance, because then if you don't earn out, then you don't get an offer for another book. And so you're like, oh my gosh, like what works, right? What do you lean towards? If you go with a small press, then yeah, you probably won't get a big advance, but you might get a lot more personalized attention. And then other people will say, if you go to a small press, they don't have enough hands to give you personalized attention. So, You do. It's almost like that business part of writing is enough to make you worry about everything, right? So that's what you do. You just freak out about all these little details, and you ask, on Facebook and Twitter, and you get advice from other authors, and they're like, oh, but this, and oh, but that, and you just feel paralyzed after a while, like, well, I guess I'll just go with my first instinct. I don't know. So it is a lot. That worrying is probably the hardest part, because it like I said, it paralyzes you. It doesn't give you that confidence of, I wish I knew what to do. Is this when an agent or a publisher or some blog post tells you that, oh, this particular trend is over, and you're like, but I just finished a manuscript in this trend, right? So you're like, what do you do? And then someone goes, oh, don't worry about it. It'll come back around again. And you're like, okay, there goes 6 months of work or a year worth of work, right? And and then later you start another work in progress. So, you start another work, and then all of a sudden you go back to that original book, and you're like, oh, this is garbage. I'm so glad I didn't try to sell this, And then maybe 2 years from now, you're like, wow, I can't believe I didn't sell this, And it's a lot of that back and forth. That part is probably the toughest for me.
Very nice and relatable too. I know I have a couple comments coming in, and Julie Cáceres on YouTube says, I agree with Shaila 100%. And it's already going to be, are we reaching? Yes, we're reaching 3:30. So maybe about 10 minutes left, but I do have one more question, and I'm really glad for the comments coming in, because it segues into this final question. But before we get there, going back to what Gabriel had said, Miracle Austin says, Gabriel, I like your perspective about watching a TV show or movie. Watch, learn, gain, and create. Which is a very, very nice way of putting it. And then we have a couple comments coming from YouTube about the word sprints, both on different ends of the spectrum. Manuel Ruiz, the word sprint master, says word sprints.
Yeah.
And Seek Knock on YouTube says writing sprints make me panic and give me anxiety. So we have two ends of the spectrum, and I think it deals with what works for you and what fits for you. And some things are absolute superpower tools for some authors, and others they need a different avenue. But that does bring me to my final question. And Julie Cáceres was touching on it a bit, asking on YouTube, saying hey Shaila, if you were to come out with a quote for young adults like me since I'm 18, what would it be? And then again for Ashley, if you have a quote for young adults, what would it be? And that segues to my last question of, if for aspiring writers or aspiring authors, or for people in your, a genre that you're trying to write for, what advice would you give either about writing, becoming an author, being a creative, wanting to put out this content into the world? What advice would you give? And that'll be our final question before we sign off. So beginning with Gabriel, what words do you have for prospective writers and authors?
Well, I think a lot of times people, I think it was Ashley saying, a question in herself, like, who am I to do this, right? Who am I to write? I think maybe most of us have gone through that. I remember when I was a young guy starting to dabble with actually writing for creative purposes. I never allowed myself to call myself a poet, for instance. That's what I first started writing, poetry. And I would never allow myself, for some reason, it was like it banned. The word was banned from my vocabulary when I was describing myself. Even if I was going to a poetry reading, I wouldn't have them introduce me as a poet, or because I guess I was looking at it like this, high and mighty position, prestigious or something. But I think that has to do with self-confidence and maybe self-esteem as a writer, meaning because you're exposing yourself, you're showing something, you're going to be showing something to people that comes from deep within you. And so you're exposing yourself entirely to criticism in a way that nobody else really has to do. Think of all the jobs that exist out there, all the jobs that exist out there don't involve you opening some aspects of yourself, so freely and widely that everybody can see clearly. Because when you write, you can't help but some of you spill out, some of yourself, your way of looking at things, your way of seeing the world, and so you're completely open to criticism. So it's tough. It's tough, but I would say for anybody who wants to write or is writing, but they have all their manuscripts in a closet, in a box, locked away, they don't want to show it to anybody else. You only live once, and it's great when a dead author gets discovered and it's like, oh my God, look at this! This person was a genius, and their writing was great. Let's all read it, and so it sells millions. That's fine, but wouldn't you want to, roll those dice right now when you're alive? Maybe it happens, right? Maybe it happens for you right now, and even if it doesn't, that doesn't determine whether you are succeeded or not. I think what success as a writer means is when you got the message, did you deliver it, right? Did you grab it and bring it into existence, right? It's like delivering a baby, the baby's ready to come. Are you ready to deliver it? So do it. And that's success right there. I mean, the doctor didn't have to hang around for me to see me grow up into a well-adjusted man to say, okay, I did a good job, bringing this guy into the world. He's not a serial killer and he's not a, mass murderer or whatever. So I'm glad I did a good job on that. No.
Yeah, Gabriel.
Yeah, well, that you know of.
I know, yeah.
But and the other thing I would say is just connecting to what I was saying about watching all these shows on Netflix and stuff or Prime. We no longer have to write according to a certain genre only or a certain thing that is that is seen as like this is how things are done, like Stephen King style of horror or whatever, right? Now is the variety is so wide that anybody with a good idea can have a successful can sell a story, sell it, so you don't have to follow somebody else's footsteps. You don't have to follow the J.K. Rowling's, the Stephen King's. You don't have to follow them. You can create your own, because in this day and age with social media, with so many platforms to watch content, you definitely will find a niche. You will find it. All you got to do is just put your work out there. Don't follow don't follow everybody else. Do your own thing, and they'll come to you. I think so.
Very nice, very nice. And Ashley Dotson, what words of wisdom or inspiration do you have for aspiring writers and authors?
Well, because of there was so much self-doubt within me. If you're someone who's constantly asking, well, who am I? Why me? Then flip that around. Why not? Why not? You must be your biggest fan. You need to write for yourself. Write for yourself first, and write for somebody else later. This story is something you need to tell, and only you can tell it. So don't be so hard on yourself. You've got to be able to try a little bit at a time. That's true. Right? So, no, you're not going. It's not going to get written in one day or a month. There is a commercial on YouTube that says something like "write a novel in 3 months." I want to turn that off. Ever? Not a nice commercial.
It puts more stress on you. Yeah,
it really does.
Makes you like, oh. But I love that. I love that. Like instead of why me, why not you? Like absolutely, absolutely. And so, Shaila, any words of advice or wisdom, or
there's over. I mean, the last few years, there's always been blog posts or interviews, where they ask you about advice, and mine's stayed pretty consistent. The old adage about write what you know. In my case, I don't think it's just about writing what you know. I mentioned earlier that I'd wanted to be a writer, since I was a young girl, and when I got to high school and you're reading all these great American novels. And, I think at that point I wanted to be an English major, which of course my parents were like, no, 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 there's no money in that, So I was like, ah. So I ended up, being a pharmacist, but all those stories, the one thing I really took away from all that was I wanted to be the next great American novelist, right? High hopes and, nothing wrong with that. But I spent the next 20, 30 years trying to write literary fiction. So yeah, I could write what I know in a literary fiction format, but I didn't write what I loved. And I think people kind of get caught in the, oh, YA fantasy is really hot right now, I'm going to write the next greatest YA fantasy. But that may not be your voice. Just because you love something doesn't mean that's necessarily what you're good at writing. You might have a very dark and, kind of gritty voice, and you're better off writing, a mystery or, a horror, or you might be really into, let's say, dark romance, but you're a light and fluffy person. So, you could really, there are two sides of your personality in that sense. Sometimes what you read isn't necessarily what you're going to be good at writing. Sometimes what you read and enjoy reading tells you that this is your natural voice, because you will automatically think that way as a storyteller. So instead of that whole write what you know, I would say write what you feel. Not what you feel like, but I'm just saying write what you feel. I felt that teen romance. I enjoyed it. I was passionate about writing that, story. And like I said, 2 books in 6 months. And I know that's kind of against what we just said about the write in 3 months. That was just a fluke, because that's never happened again. But it was because it was the first time I was so productive and I was so excited about what I was writing. And for those first, all this time since high school, when I was trying to write, and I'd write these short stories, I could work on one short story for like 3 years. And I would go to all these little writing clubs in whatever town I was living in, and I would workshop them and have critique partners. I would enter them into stories, with literary journals and stuff. And it would never go anywhere. I never felt passionate enough to write a book about one of those characters. I thought about characters all the time, and I loved story ideas, and I would come up with a bunch of them. But I was writing in the wrong genre. And I think when I got out of that, popular romance and popular, fiction and genre fiction, please, that's not real writing. That was just BS. That's just me kind of internalizing some of that academic snobbery or just kind of, the stigma of writing genre fiction to some extent, right? Depending on which subgenre you're writing in. And so for me picking up these 2 characters and just running with them was like breathing for the first time. And that was really because I felt the characters, I felt the story, I felt the style. So yeah, don't write what you know, write what you feel. And that's really my takeaway from all my writing and my learning the hard way, that I didn't have to waste 30 years writing literary fiction. I could be right now having like 30 books under my belt, but no. And it happens when it happens. So I'm not upset about it or anything. It's just, your life journey, informs you, and it did very much so. So for me, yeah, write what you feel.
Thank you. I love that sentiment, the write what you feel. I love that. And referring back to what you were saying about, sometimes you may think it's this genre for you, but it could be, something else. We had a comment coming in from YouTube saying, ooh, that's so true, because it is, things happen in an odd way, and we learn things and discover things about ourselves as we go along. And another YouTube comment saying, definitely going to keep this advice in mind. Absolutely. And going back to Gabriel's comment, before that, Rosario Ozuna is a librarian here from Texas, in Gruya, Texas, on the up northern Rio Grande Valley. And she's been an avid supporter. Thank you for watching, Rosario. She's tuning in from her YouTube channel, One Book or Novel at a Time, saying, hi, everyone. Hi, Rosario. Thank you for watching. And going back to what Gabriel had said, she says, I love that. Put yourself out there and find your niche. Absolutely. And I just want to say thank you all so very much for coming, for joining this This was so good. And not only like the questions that were answered, because like the Q&A aspect, but we actually had conversations starting, and like one thing sparked another, and we bounced off of each other. And I'm very grateful that you guys could be here, not only to answer the questions, but have these conversations, meet each other, celebrate the work, celebrate like. I think one thing to take away from this is that I'm always surprised, by the number of authors that I think, are accomplished, and they have a series and they've done this, and oh my gosh. And then to hear that that imposter syndrome is like that recurring theme. It's like we have to remind each other, like, no, like we're here for a reason. We did this for a reason. And so this whole conversation just boosted my own, like, we're here. We can do it. It's real. It's a thing. We're here. We're persevering, and we're gonna keep supporting each other and promoting each other no matter what. So for final send-offs, you guys can say, like a final message to the audience, like a nice short little goodbye, and get those plugs. Where can we find you after this on your, what are the sites, social media, where can we find your books? So beginning with Gabriel, we can start with your send-off.
Well, I think you put the website somewhere there. But it's GabrielHugo.com. That's it. And you can find pretty much anything you want to find out about me through there. My Facebook page is plastered on there on one of the pages as well on that website. So either way you go there, you can find me or my books. I basically just want to say thanks, Katelynn, for the invite. This is really great to do this. A lot of fun doing it virtually. It's not the same as in person, but it's also got its perks. Right now, I'm not wearing shoes or socks, and that's pretty nice. And then I can just end this and grab something to eat because it's all right here. But no, I want to thank you. I know you are so busy. I don't know how in the world you do all this work. It is a lot, and you still got more coming today and tomorrow. And you're a grad student, and you're an author. You're a very impressive young lady, and I really admire you. I think you got a lot going for you. I hope that you have a lot of success. I really do. I think I know that you're going to have a lot of success. But it comes little by little, and you're doing it, and you're actually an inspiration to me in that sense, because you're out there every day doing things, and I see it all the time on your Facebook and stuff. It's just it's amazing. It's inspiring, and so congratulations to you. I hope you can keep this series going because it's really great to see all the different authors. And Ashley and Shaila, nice to meet you guys. I hope that your dreams come true. All your dreams come true. Your writing, your books, that they make it to the top. I really do. Congratulations to you guys.
Thank you. And again, just the ability to present this, where we all have something to share. We're all feeling it, not being able to do the events, and like you had said, your book came out and you were ready, and then nope. And so being able to, if I could provide again even an hour and 30, an hour and 40, where we can just talk and meet and celebrate, I'm happy to have done the job. And thank you for joining, and thank you so very much. And Ashley, any final words, and where can we find you after this?
Well, I've got 2 series right now, the Black Bayou and Finding Justus series. They're both free on Amazon on Kindle today in honor of the right crowd. I'm on everything: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Don't look for me on Twitter. I'm on Instagram quite a bit, and feel free to follow me on my website. I will have tour dates whenever we start back up. It's book tour season, and we're all on. So thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you guys for talking with me. It was wonderful. You made my week.
Yay! Thank you so very much. And Shaila Patel, where can we find you after this? Any final good words? And get those plugs. Where can we find you after this?
So Soulmated series. All the information about the trilogy is on my website. I also have this year, Gabriel, you were talking about a February release. I had a short story that came out in an anthology in February, and it was like March came along, and it was like, as far as promotion, we didn't do anything. And I think I had to cancel, or the events themselves were canceled. I think there was like 6 appearances that I ended up canceling. I'd gotten in maybe about 3 or 4 in January and February, and then it all just, stopped. So I miss seeing everybody. But yeah, if you go to my my website, I've got all my social media links there. Whether it's Goodreads, Facebook, Twitter. I haven't been very active in the last few months, probably because I've taken a back seat as far as promotion goes, and then also because all this, the stress and everything. It's just been enough for me to just kind of sit back and escape, and so I've been kind of taking care of myself that way. But I do check my emails and my notifications. So if you ever want to ask me a question, feel free to do that. I'd be happy to answer anybody. Yeah. But yeah, Katelynn, thank you for doing this. This is amazing, and thanks for all the viewers that have tuned in. And Gabriel and Ashley, wish you all the best. And Ashley, you are a poet, and so are you, Gabriel.
I will buy the
Yeah, you are because you think it. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Now I get pretty cocky about it, and now I flaunt it. That's a problem I had when I was young. Not now. Now you want to tone it down.
Car probably that says I'm a poet.
Always. Keep at least 10 feet away.
I'll wear it the next time we're together.
I love it. But again, thank you all so very much for tuning in. Everyone on Facebook and YouTube, thank you for watching. Thank you for your comments. And for the panelists here, Mr. Gabriel Hugo, Miss Ashley Dotson, Miss Shaila Patel, thank you so very much for your time. Thank you for the conversations. I learned a lot. I had a lot of fun. And The Right Crowd is not over yet. This is the last weekend, but we have another panel coming up at 4 o'clock, 2 more tomorrow at 2 and 4 o'clock Central Standard Time. And thank you for tuning in. Thank you to the panelists. And I know this is not the last we will see of each other. Facebook, virtually, in person. We're going to continue to stay connected. And again, thank you so very much for joining. Thank you for having these conversations. And that's all that I have for this panel. So thank you, everyone, for watching. We will see you soon. Bye.
Bye.